Welcome to The American Story. Stories about what it is that makes America beautiful. Heartbreaking, funny, inspiring, and endlessly interesting. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. I call this one, We Are All Americans. Ely Parker was born in 1828 to Elizabeth and William Parker of the Tonawanda Seneca tribe of the Iroquois confederacy in western New York. Parker became a leader in his tribe at a very young age, trained as a civil engineer, and earned himself a reputation in that field. In 1857, when he was 29 years old, he moved to Galena, Illinois as a civil engineer working for the Treasury Department. And there his life took a fateful turn. He became friends with a fellow named Ulysses S. Grant. In these years, Grant was an ex-Army officer working as a clerk in his father's store. Parker liked to tell the story of coming to Grant's aid in a barroom fight in Galena, the two of them back to back, fighting their way out against practically all the other patrons. At about 5 feet 8 inches and 200 pounds, the robust Parker referred to himself as a savage Jack Falstaff. When the Civil War came on, Parker tried several times to join the Union Army as an engineer, but was turned down because he was not a citizen. When he approached Secretary of State William Seward about a commission, he was told that the war was an affair between white men, that he should go home, and we will settle our own troubles among ourselves, without any Indian aid. Eventually, with Grant's endorsement, Parker received a commission with the rank of captain as Assistant Adjutant General for Volunteers. By late 1863, he had been transferred to Grant's staff as military secretary. He soon became familiarly known as the Indian at headquarters and was promoted to lieutenant colonel and later to brigadier general. He may have saved Grant's life, or at least prevented his capture, on a night in the Wilderness Campaign in 1864, when Grant and his staff were riding into enemy lines in the dark, unbeknownst to themselves. But Parker is rightly remembered for something that happened in the parlor of a private residence in the village of Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. In the days preceding, Union armies had captured the city of Petersburg and the Confederate capital of Richmond. Grant and the Federal Army of the Potomac had put Confederate General Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia in such a position that in the late afternoon of April 7th, Grant, sitting on the veranda of his hotel headquarters in Farmville, said to a couple of his generals, "I have a great mind to summon Lee to surrender." He immediately wrote a letter respectfully inviting Lee to surrender, and had it sent to him under a flag of truce. It took Lee a couple of days of desperate failed maneuvers to come around to the idea. But by the morning of April 9th, Lee had concluded that there is nothing left me to do but to go and see General Grant, and I would rather die 1,000 deaths. They agreed to meet in the village of Appomattox Courthouse to discuss terms. Grant had been riding hard for days on rough roads and rough weather. When he met Lee in the parlor of the brick house where they had arranged to meet, he had on dirty boots, an old suit without his sword, and without any distinguishing mark of rank except the shoulder straps of a lieutenant general on his woolen blouse. Lee was decked out from head to toe in all the military finery he had at his disposal. After introductions and not much small talk, Lee asked Grant on what terms he would receive the surrender of Lee's army. Grant told him that all officers and men would be paroled and disqualified from taking up arms again until properly exchanged, and all arms, ammunition, and supplies were to be delivered up as captured property. Lee said those were the terms he expected, and he asked Grant to commit them to writing, which he did on the spot and showed them to Lee. With minor revisions, Lee accepted, and Grant handed the document to his senior Adjutant General Theodore Bowers to put into ink. This was a document that would effectively put an end to 4 years of devastating civil war. Bowers' hands were so unsteady from nerves that he had to start over 3 or 4 times, going through several sheets of paper in a failed effort to prepare a fair copy for the signatures of the generals. So Grant asked Ely Parker to do it, which he did without trouble. This gave occasion for Lee and Parker to be introduced. When Lee recognized that Parker was an American Indian, he said, "I am glad to see one real American here." Parker shook his hand and replied, "We are all Americans." Thanks for being part of the American Story. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. The American Story podcast is made possible through listener donations. If you'd like to support the production of more stories, please visit theamericanstorypodcast.org and click Donate. By visiting theamericanstorypodcast.org, you'll also find that each episode has resources for you to explore. That's theamericanstorypodcast.org.